button. It usually takes about a second or so to populate. And then once that's the case, we'll just jump right into it, man.
Cool.
All right. All right. We're live inside the Facebook group. Alex, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm excited to have you here. And while everybody is tuning in, you guys, I have a special guest today, one of my good friends, Alex over here, who has been absolutely crushing the online space and more importantly, in the sales side of the online space, which I know a lot of our group members need help with. So Alex, without butchering an introduction for you, would you like to give everybody a quick rundown of who you are and kind of how you got to where you're at in this space right now?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into the online space, I think, in like 2018. And I basically tried to succeed in e-commerce because that's kind of like what everyone was doing at the time, the drop shipping. And I had no success in it for like 9 months straight. I maybe had one store that got a few sales. And I was kind of trying to look for what my next play could be because at this point I kind of figured, okay, I just waste a lot of money on ads. So I was trying to find out what's next. And one of my buddies was like, you could be the one selling these drop shipping courses that you just bought instead of, buying them and throwing money away on ads. And so this was in January 2020 then that I finally became a closer. And it took off really quickly for me. I got my first client to sell like an Amazon FBA course after like 2 days and started crushing it for him. He gave us a testimonial. And so then I started to scale as a sales agency by like March because basically, I had gotten up to 4 or 5 clients. And so I didn't have and I guess it's important to know, I was a full-time student athlete. So I was playing tennis at St. Louis University. So my schedule, we had practice at 6 a.m. So I was waking up at 5 and I was taking calls in between classes. I was taking calls at 9 p.m. at night. Like it was a super unhealthy schedule. But anyways, I finally scaled as a sales agency, meaning I would get these outsourced sales calls from my clients. I just outsource them to another closer and we'd basically split the commission. And so I did that all throughout of 2020, all in the B2C space, working with course sellers, coaches, consultants. And I basically wanted to continue to scale, and I hadn't been able to scale for a while. And I was like, you know what, why don't I try to break into the B2B sales space? And so I started reaching out to agency owners, and I even had agency owners reaching out to me, but they weren't willing to work with an agency because, as all of you guys know, you already have to pay your media buyer, any appointment setters you have, you already, and you don't want to increase your overhead because we were charging a monthly retainer plus, we were charging normally 20 and 25% commission. And so they weren't willing to work with my agency, but they said they really did want to outsource sales to like an in-house sales rep. So I was having people ask like, yo, can you train people for me? Or can you go find me a sales rep? And so I was like, you know what, like I might as well. So this was like then end of 2020, I became like a freelance recruiter kind of. And people, to my surprise, because I looked at like what some of the competitor recruiters were doing, they were charging like 4 to 5 grand a closer. So I had someone pay me 5 grand to place a single closer in his business. And I was kind of like, okay, like there might be a lot more like money in this like hiring slash like recruitment section than there is in me just like running this agency, because obviously the agency has like a lot of client work and managing relationships and stuff like that. And so I realized there was a lot of money in recruitment, but then I also realized it was a really inefficient process in the sense that all the recruiters are basically going and charging people for sales training, train them over the course of like 1 to 2 months, and then placing them inside of the business owner's business, and kind of charging on both ends, which is it's cool and it works, but it's a really like lengthy turnaround time. So I was kind of like, okay, maybe there's a better way to do this, and I kind of had that in the back of my mind. And then in January of this year, we had actually just hit back-to-back record months with like the agency. And when my buddy FaceTimes me and he was like, you need to drop everything you're doing and start like a SaaS company. And because he had just like built one to like 20K MRR and got a offer for a huge multiple. And so we basically sat down, tried to figure out what we could do, how we could make one off of what I was already doing. I kind of told him about that recruitment. And he's like, let's make a platform to hire closers that have like a proven and verified background. And so that's kind of how I started Closify. That's what I've been doing now since like February, and it's been going really, really well.
It's one hell of a story, dude, especially like when you're first getting started with this. And I always love like diving in deeper on that. So kudos to you, my man. But like, as far as, because I know a lot of our audience that's on this that will be watching this is they are looking to like when they do hire somebody, like what are things like what are traits that someone should be looking for when they're hiring a closer? Because I mean, you've how many closers have you personally hired?
Probably over 50. Yeah. And so especially with Closify now, what I kind of tell all of our clients, because our clients obviously interview through our platform, is I'm like, everyone in here is going to be able to sell, right? Like that's not necessarily going to be the issue on the interview. I tell people to look for characteristics, mainly like you want someone to buy into your business. Like in my opinion, that's the most important thing, because if they buy into your business and it's commission only, then it's like, their success depends on the business's success and vice versa. And so then, you got them like, for example, actually, YJ and Ben are actually a great example. YJ, he really bought into, Ben's agency, and the dude's, he's a super hard worker. Ben recognized that. This guy, it's the expectation is it's all inbound closing, but this guy was going back and like cold calling every single lead in his CRM because it's commission only. He wanted to go get paid. He bought into the company. So I tell people to really look for people that have like that hunger, because in my opinion, that's the most important thing in sales. And again, especially when it's commission only, like it's sink or swim. So you've got to see that fire in them.
Yeah, that's facts. And for everybody that's tuning in on here, YJ and Ben is one of our top students at High Ticket Freedom who is crushing it in the sports industry, running ads for. I don't want to spoil his industry too much, but he's in the sports industry and he's absolutely crushing it. And YJ, right?
Yep.
YJ is a guy that Alex placed from his company Closify to help our client Ben, and it's been, like you said, just crushing it there. Because when you have that synergy of finding a closer that is on point and is actually bought into your company, I mean, you see things like that where I think Ben told me, he's like, yeah, I didn't even tell him to, but he just hopped in the CRM and started hitting people up and started getting sales. And I'm like, dude, that's what you need, bro.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where, I mean, obviously you're placing. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about like what you got going on with Closify? Like, because I mean, we heard the story about how it started, which is awesome. How does it work for somebody? I mean, I've seen what you have going on is different than a lot of people. And the way that I would describe it very quickly is it's almost like an Upwork of closers. Like, like how if you're looking for a good freelancer, you usually go to like Upwork or Fiverr, and then you can see the resume and all this stuff. But like you have something really unique that I don't see a lot of other people. I don't see anybody else in the space have it, where you can go on there and you can actually see. Yeah, I'll just let you explain it, man.
Yeah. So, that's kind of where we got some inspiration from too. We were like, okay, like why would people use our platform over a Fiverr or an Upwork? And again, it's just because it's not very great and vetted talent on those. So we were like, how do we just make sure we are a platform for only the best talent? And so basically to get inside of our platform, you have to share past tracking sheets of, when you worked with a past client with a reference from that client saying, yes, these numbers are accurate. This is what he actually did. And then we'll place you inside of Closify. And so when you log in, you'll be able to see the closer's profile. You see the city that they're based out of, the niches that they've sold in, a little bio about their experience. And then you'll see, roughly their revenue closed, their average ticket size, or the average deal size, and their estimated close rate. And so then all you have to do is you can click on a profile to view it. You can quickly schedule an interview. If you click a button that says schedule an interview, it takes you right into their calendar link. So you can obviously schedule a time in them. And then literally once you're ready to hire someone, all you have to do is click on invite to team. The closer accepted on their end. And then, our account manager will help you onboard them, help you with SOPs, all those things to make sure that you can hire and onboard a closer in about a week rather than 1 to 2 months with a recruiter.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And I know like personally doing it myself, usually like finding, hiring, vetting out, and going out there and just going through resumes is one of the biggest pain in the asses, like as a business owner I've done. Because I mean, at this point, I currently run 5 online businesses, and 2 of them require full-time closers to be involved. And it's one of those things where just employees in general is it takes a lot of time. So I really appreciate and like what you guys got going on there because it simplifies the process. Now, jumping into that a little bit more with like the process, when would you say, because I always like to ask this question, I know it depends on quite a bit of different things, but when would you say it's a good time for someone to look into bringing on a closer inside their business?
Yeah, so there's two main things that we really look for. The first one being you have proven sales systems, meaning you either know you can spend X amount on ads to book X amount of calls, or you can send X amount of cold messages to get X amount of calls. So like you want to have that predictability, so that way your closer is going to be able, you're not going to be able to retain a really good closer if they're not going to have any great earning potential. So you need to have that predictability in the appointments that you're booking per week. And then the other thing is you have to have a really good offer, and you have to have a really, you have to have validated it. Meaning if you haven't sold your offer a bunch of times yourself and you don't know the frequently asked questions that are going to come up, you don't know the niche terminology or even like any like buzzwords that you can then pass on to your closer, then you're probably not ready, because sometimes we'll have people come to us that are like, hey, we've never actually, sold our offer before, but we're looking to bring on a closer because we think, he'll be able to sell it. And it's not quite like that where a great closer can just start selling a bad offer. You know what I mean? You have to
Right.
have validated it. You have to have sold it yourself before, and you have to, know it works in your market.
Yeah, I see that happen a lot too. Now, what would you say for somebody that maybe, because a lot of the clients I deal with, we have a very, very in-depth sales training that we help them get up to speed. We give them like our exact presentation, our scripts, literally everything that works. But at the end of the day, there's some people that just really struggle with, sales and just having conversations with people. And if you're somebody like that, like it's okay, there's always ways to improve, but sometimes that improvement method, like that takes a while. What would you say to somebody that is in that position? Would it be smart for them to find somebody that maybe they can work out some sort of deal, give them a higher commission to close deals, be like, hey, I suck, like I need your help? Or is it like, yo, just go all the way down, ignore the distractions, fucking focus? Like, what would you say from someone that's probably been on that standpoint to someone in those shoes?
If the lead flow is good, I would say you could still bring on a closer. If you're actually able to, if you're pushing over 10 meetings a week, if you're only pushing a couple meetings a week, I think it'd be best if you just doubled down and focused on improving your sales skills. And or it might even be better to focus more on your offer, because I've seen people that are horrible at sales close deals just because they have such a good offer. So I think if that's their concern, I would say maybe even focus even more on your offer than necessarily just your sales skills. Because again, I've seen people that are horrible at sales or have very little sales experience close tons of deals just because they have such a great offer.
Yeah, having a unique selling proposition is huge. And I mean, I'll even be the first to say when I first started in sales, and you guys have been following my story for a while, like I was not good. Alex, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but like when I first got started, I started in college my junior year, and we would go door to door knocking for local businesses, selling them print and digital ads. This is like right when digital started becoming a thing, thank God. But selling print and digital ads, we were selling impressions. So like there was no ROI, there was nothing. It was the hardest thing to fucking sell. And I remember walking into my first meeting, and like when I started speaking, words didn't come out. And it was like one of the most embarrassing moments for me personally, but it was one of those like milestones where I think a lot of people kind of try to skip, but you need to go through, is like, you got to go through the bullshit. You got to go through all this stuff, because if you don't, like, let's say, you start getting a bunch of meetings set, you hire a closer and things start going well, let's say the closer's cat dies and then has to move to Arkansas and you never hear from him again. Pretty unique story, but that type of shit happens. And like, if that happens, your business relies on that one person and you're done. So I'm with you, man. I think it's one of those things where you need to have everything in place so it makes sense. And more importantly, if you have an offer that sells itself, it's just a number of how much touch points you can get out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing that you could even do is, if they're doing a two-call close, maybe they take the like the audit call, the discovery call, and then pass it on to a closer for the actual closing call as well.
Yeah. I love that. And question for you on there, because I actually just released a new video on this a couple weeks ago. What are your thoughts on a one step versus two step close?
Yeah, so I actually used to be um, a huge fan of the one call close. Just 'cause I never saw the point of doing like a 15-minute call and then like a 20-minute call. It's like, couldn't that be combined into like, a 40-minute call, whatever. But more recently for agency owners across like we have a lot of clients that are agency owners and across the board, most of them are doing two call closes, and like the most successful ones are also doing two call closes. So for agency owners, I'm a big fan of the two call close because it then becomes a lot more of a like it's more consulting of a sell because they're doing like the audit, they're diving into the ad account or they're diving into their Clavio, they're really auditing, and then the sales calls like, okay, here's our like custom tailored game plan for you. And it's just it doesn't seem like you're being sold, you're being given a game plan. um, Now, when it comes to like our coaching, like info product clients, I still think the one call close is probably better. But especially like for our agency owners, I'm a huge fan of two call close now.
Yeah, we preach that all the time too, especially because, when you're first getting started, it's fine to practice. I think of it as like practice when you're hopping on a call with someone that's not qualified. That's something I would always do and have my team members do is if you're hopping on, like we would always vet them out. Like the first step is discovery questions. And I tell all my students as well as like, if you're not getting at least 10 meetings a week and you're not having at least 10 sales presentations, you should be practicing with all of these unqualified people. I mean, go in there with the expectation that they're going to say no, but like, I think once you get to the point where you have consistent repetition behind your sales, it's good to have the two-step close and really use that to qualify them to make sure that you don't have people that get on the call with and you're like, oh, are you ready to go? And they're like, I don't have any money.
Right.
Like that's, and people say, I mean, when you get on call and someone goes, well, I don't have any money. It's like, okay, well, take out some credit, like all this stuff. And it's like, if someone's actually broke, they don't have credit, they can't get loans, like they can't buy from you. Right. And like, I think that's a big misconception in the space is like, you should be able to close everybody. But, if you do the two-step close the right way, you'll close a much higher percentage of the people that you get on the actual calls with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So a couple of things and we'll wrap it up here, man, because I know your time's valuable. Why should, I guess, going into the sales commission, what do you recommend for closers?
Yeah. So in the agency space, particularly, it's really interesting because obviously there's a lot of like recurring deals. Um, so what I tell people is that the average across the board is about 15% on the contract length close. So, if they close a $2,000 a month deal on a 3-month contract, it's 15% on that 6K. What some of our clients though will do as well is they might start them at like 10% though with like and then incentivize them to get to 15 by closing X amount of deals in a month or hitting X% close rate. But then also what's really interesting in the agency space is dropping the commission to like 5% in perpetuity as long as the client stays on. But then the closer's doing like a little bit of account management there. They're doing like a little bit of just making sure, they're managing that relationship, maybe upselling them on another service if they can. So that's another like little interesting caveat in the agency space.
And it's like a little bonus nug right there. Instead of hiring an account manager, just incentivize your closer to get some more money by keeping the client happy on the back end.
Right.
I think that's solid because especially like most of the people watching this are probably getting started with their agency or at the point where they're slowly starting to scale. And, when you scale and you bring on too many team members, you dip into margins pretty well. So that's a huge little bonus hack that you shared there is like, try to put them all together in the same place.
Yeah. And I've done that as well, actually. And it works pretty well for me. We did end up switching to a full-time account manager, which I think is important to note. But I think for someone that's early and might not have like the cash flow to go and hire an account manager on a base salary at the start, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you should 100% have a full account manager in your business when that time comes. Like for us, we've actually trained our account managers to become sales reps because we have so many inactive clients because we've been doing this for a while that they go back, they call up, and we give them a closing percentage if they close the deal. So I think that's another nug for you guys is like turn your account managers into closing machines. And going off of that, man, is there any like advice you have for like when you're training? I guess if somebody doesn't go with Closify, like if someone was to do this themselves, like what would that advice be to like go find the right type of closer? Like what type of trainings should they be doing?
Yeah, so this is kind of it's an interesting topic because I don't believe that you can just run someone through a video course and expect them to sell. So personally, like we've trained a few people before, and it basically we gave them a very base understanding of sales overall, and we gave them like a sales framework, and we had them like read it, recite it, practice it a lot. But then after that, it just became mock calls, mock calls, mock calls, and that was it. And that's what really took them from being like, you can tell this guy's just reading the script and sounds like a robot, to now this guy can actually sell. So it probably took like 2 weeks of mock calls before they were like solid, and we put them onto an offer. But yeah, the main thing in sales is experience. Like you have to run them through some mock calls
Oh, I think
or
you're
start.
muted right there, bro. So
Can you
there?
hear? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I don't know. Something random happened, but
Okay.
I was hearing mock calls. Yeah.
Yeah. So experience is more important than anything else, in my opinion. So you've got to run them through mock calls, or even if you want to like ramp them up, but start them on that initial discovery call. Like you just got to get them skin in the game. And I mean, yeah, like in terms of like the base training slash knowledge, like they could literally go through YouTube. You know what I mean? It's not like you don't have to go buy them a course or anything. Like that could be helpful. Like there are some really great sales training programs out there that I'm sure you've been through some of the same ones that I have. But
Yeah.
in my opinion, like experience is really king when it comes to sales.
Yeah. And when you say mock calls, do you mean like role play?
Exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's huge. That's something that we always do as well is like we'll role play. And I think it's another big issue in the space is sticking too much to script because when you're too much to script, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Clients, they catch on to that and they know. So you're not going to buy from a robot, from somebody that's reading it script to script. And scripts are good, but they're the foundation to actually understanding how a sales call should be like laid out and structured.
And it's especially more in the B2B space again, because they're just so much more sophisticated buyers than if you're selling a drop shipping course to a 16-year-old kid. You know what I mean? They've been on tons of sales calls, they've closed lots of deals. If you start running them through a sales process with a script and asking super baity questions, like they're not dumb. Like they're gonna know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's facts, my man. Well, dude, I appreciate you hopping on here. Is there any last piece of advice that you would give for anyone in the agency space?
Take care of your prospecting first. It's normally I would be biased and say that, closers are, an integral part of your business, which they still are. But, I talk about this a lot. You know, Prospecting is more important than closing because you don't have to worry about closing if your pipe or you don't have to stress over losing a prospect if your pipeline's always full. So I'll always tell like the most important part for an agency owner or any business really is just keep your pipeline full.
Facts. It's facts because exactly what you said. If you're having a slow month and you need more sales, as long as your pipeline's full, you'll be happy. Uh, Thanks for coming on here, brother. Where can everybody find you? Where's the best place?
Yes, I really only use Twitter and Instagram, and they're both at AlexH459.
Alex H459. He's on that Twitter game. I am not on there yet, but I do hear a lot of people migrating. Maybe after Facebook and Instagram shutting down for a whole day, maybe Twitter's the new move.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Twitter.
Well, dude, appreciate you hopping on here. Everybody, go check out Alex. He's got a lot of good stuff. And with that being said, we'll see you guys in the next one.